Happy 2016, January 14th. This is the WikiSpeed set of Scrum ceremonies, and I'd like to kick us off. I'm Joe Justice in Linwood, Washington. Stated to me last week, it began working on the ignition wiring harness extension with William Newing and Rob Huggins. We did get it began and measured and ran out of material, ran out of wires of the right gauge. So we ordered those wires and we ordered wiring harness stays. That was part of our work last week. And it's zip ties with click to connect plastic connectors. When you drill a hole into the aluminum chassis, in our case, or the carbon fiber, they snap into place with then exposing a zip tie to hold the wiring harness securely in a position. We ordered those, ordered a wire direct gauge. It's 10 gauge for the ignition itself and 20 gauge for the data connections. It looks like 18 to 20 gauge works for data connections and 18 to 20 works for the ignition power, powering the starter motor on the Honda R18A engine. And we got that ordered from Amazon.com, which worked really well. I ordered it from my phone at the shop. Then started a conversation with the creator of Speeduino, an Arduino-based, proven, used in the field engine management solution with engine managing as well. From their YouTube channel, their demo videos, it looks quite robust. The creator drives his own Miata using it, Mazda Miata MX-5, and it looks and sounds great. And the creator has powered several other engines with it as well, including even a two-stroke lawnmower, it looked like from one of the demo videos. And the creator is interested in producing ECUs for Team WikiSpeed. So that conversation has begun, and I dove into some research down that avenue. This sprint, I hope to mount the engine side wiring harness connections so we have a known stable interface of where to meet those wires, and then mount the ignition and key assembly itself in the dashboard so we have a known stable interface for that area within the interior module, and make headway on the ignition extension. The extension is actually pretty big, but hopefully we'll make headway. Oh, also in the last week I attended my first autocross at Evergreen Speedway to see how events are run there, as the first WikiSpeed Innovation Racing Series event is thought to be held there. And it was great fun, very simple, didn't require too many people to run the event. Everyone there was super friendly and free with information. And I found out from one of the regular attendees that he always solders his wiring harness connections. He doesn't just crimp them. He says they always vibrate loose under track use, no matter how he crimps them or what tool you use. So he always also applies solder after the crimp or inside the crimp. With that known, I also intend to set up a comfortable soldering station for our wiring harness modifications we're making now, so they're as durable as practical in the WikiSpeed Linwood shop. So I hope to do that today as well. Also, the missing bolts arrived, and I believe the rotor screw attachments for Michael Olczyk's suspension, and I hope to make headway in bolting together his two rear suspension modules. To be determined. I've been saying that forever, but I think we have at least more of the required parts, maybe even every single one. Blocking issues, I think we have all the parts required. I did also send off a STL 3D file of the WikiSpeed headlight controller module created by Matson, one of our interns over the summer, to Rob Huggins, who now has a miniature WikiSpeed shop and a 3D printer. And he's 3D printing it right now. He called me an hour ago and said he's starting. We'll see how it goes as that test prototype happens. So we can imagine layer by layer, nylon and PLA are being laid down right now, and we'll see if that part comes together. That's what I know of. I think that's what I'm going to try to get done this sprint as well. Stand-up from Kevin Bishop. He emailed it to the team. He says in the last week he got WordPress credentials for the WikiSpeed site, and he's happy taking on the product owner role for a new epic, a beta product page to support the WikiSpeed Innovation Racing Series. He's working on a backlog for it now, and his goal in the next week is to have an unpublished draft rough store page with 3 to 5 test items that work to the end through checkout. And he said it no goal for it to be pretty yet, just functional. That was sent in. Okay, so that's the email stand-up I'm aware of, and that's mine. Who would like to go next?
I'm going to jump in real quick and go just because I have a lot to cover and a few points to, some better for general discussion, but a few points to mention on Joe's stand-up. Okay, so obviously I set up a WordPress account for Kevin. I also researched several plugins and several options, several different concepts of how this would fit into the existing WordPress paradigm for the Innovative Racing series. I found a plugin that manages like public events that seems maybe the most promising as just a ground event where people can register to be a part of the event. There's ways to list attendees or different types of categories for attendees. So several things that seem like they may work with the concept. At the leading up to the Sunday build party, I purchased a milling vise, or at least that's what it was called, for the shop drill press to try to get a better, more precise drill on these bolt together angle plates. I also at the Sunday build party was able to set up the milling vise. I also recalibrated the drill press to, after some preliminary reading, I think originally I set it too high, but in the end I set it to 1500 RPMs for a W-sized drill bit. That seems to be the correct RPMs for aluminum, which seems fast to anybody that would be drilling steel, but the drill bit of course goes faster because it's, you know, softer, I guess. So I set it at 1500. I might actually end up setting that lower when I do the next set of drilling, just because I read that sometimes instability in the setup is best handled by slowing the drill bit down. So any leftover shaking I have, maybe just slowing it down might be able to take care of that. In other words, speeding it up is not going to help. So then I also I tested and drilled one part using the new setup, and that resulted in me returning the milling device because it was somewhat engineering flawed, where it allowed way too much play in the worst direction of what I was trying to do. But I'm sorry, not just I didn't return it. I exchanged it or upgraded it for the more recommended model that should work for what I need, a more stable model, and I think it's by the same manufacturer. I think it's called a sliding vise. So it still allows me to position the part in the XY direction, but it doesn't require clamping down of the vise and some extra, probably either abilities I don't have or the device did not have. And something that Joe maybe forgot to mention is Joe and I both attended Hangout with, I hope I get this right because I just pulled this out of my memory, but SKB Architects. Is that correct, Joe? So we had a hangout with them discussing some possibly super awesome innovations and work on the micro house design, which I'm very interested in seeing some progress in. And okay, what I have listed here is last but not least, I also hit a Harbor Freight sidewalk sale while I was doing my purchasing and returning of parts, and which is maybe the most awesome thing I've ever been to in my life, other than one of Joe's super awesome Scrum events. But no, so I got some hearing protection and some torque wrenches and some tools for the shop, super cheap, so that was awesome. Next week, I do plan on actually having a Google Hangout with Kevin to get up to speed on the, well, actually I have here on the WordPress config, but actually at this point he got himself up to speed on the WordPress config. So I just want to discuss more, maybe pair up with him and see what cool things together we can do to provide something maybe by next week for this innovative racing series that's customer facing and able to register and interact with. so we can get some feedback and see where we need to go there. And I actually, this week, I only wrote 2 things down. The other one's a little bigger, but it's just everything I can do to get one passing angle plate part done. Hopefully the new vise will do it, or whatever I need to do. Anything or everything I can get one complete passing angle plate part. And right now the test is just kind of a test fixture. I align the drill guide to the part and make sure it's completely aligned. If I can pass a 3/8 inch transfer punch through all the holes through the part and the drill guide, that's considered a passing part, because that means I can get the bolt through it. Right now I have 2 parts that I've drilled, and neither one of them are passing. So again, that's why I'm working on everything I can do to get one passing part done. That's my main goal. And I believe that wraps it up for my stand-up, but I do want to mention that I have some open discussion with Joe with some points that he brought up.
Okay, I'll try. How's the audio? Is everybody hearing?
Yes.
Can anyone let me know? Okay.
You're good.
Because the audio was pretty bad last week. So, I have not made much progress on their AC controller. I seem to be getting hung up in doing video editing, which is sort of a documentation process, but sort of a self-observation process. I've been advised that I'm spending too much time on it, and I should actually go and actually do something as opposed to trying to document what I've done. That was my wife that pointed out, by the way. And the guys in the Eco Modder group, all but one agree with her. And I've got one that sort of agrees with me that I maybe should document some of it. Anyway, so for next week, we're going to be more doing and less editing and pissing around and trying to document. Got a little bit of back and forth with guys on the groups this week, which was good. I'm still not convinced that the 3D scanner thing was successful. I guess we'll find that out later this week, whether Rob was able to print something out that sort of looks like a headlight or headlight back end or whatever it was. And Joe, I am going to be doing the DC controller with Paul. And if you're interested, we'll get 2 boards made instead of 1. It'll be a little bit less expensive. Let me know by next week, kind of thing. And that is what I did last week, and what I'm going to do next week. So I think that's it for me. Hello, Lauren.
Hey. Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to. I was just trying to get the mic turned on. So, yes, I'm. I had a setback. I have a block. I'm going to mention my block first because that's the major thing. I had a family health setback last week, so I'm working on getting rid of that, and also cross-border health insurance is slowing me down. We were planning on being in Phoenix by next week, but we may have to put that off. What I've done is just I looked very briefly at the 501c form and the books files that Joe pointed me to. And it looks like we have and only need the 2011 through 2014. 14 as the current tax year. And it looks like it's pretty complete for 2014. It looks like 1 or 2 of the other years may be lacking some months or whatever. And so I have a kind of a question or a suggestion I put forward for that when we maybe have the freewheeling discussion at the end. And what I plan to do in the coming week is get rid of my blocks and get my life going. So that's my plan.
Thank you, Lauren. Of course, good wishes, strong health, and health insurance wishes to you and your family, of course. My gosh. Okay. Is there anyone on the call with a stand-up that has not yet given it? All right, then that would take us to retrospective. I'm happy to go first. For my ability to contribute to the team, I feel pretty good about it. The team needs to be able to support me wherever they are. The folks who come locally, the folks who prepare remotely, other organizations like SKB Architects. I feel pretty good about it. I feel about an 8 in the last week. And then my role within the company, within this project, I'd say also feels quite good. I'd say feels right about an 8. What would make me even happier in the next sprint is, gosh, what would make me even happier in the next sprint? I'd be even happier if I had the ignition wiring extension in, and we were starting and shutting off car number 7 from the normal driving position, from the driver's driving position. That'd make me really happy, actually. No, that's not quite a process improvement. So we'll see if during the conversation on what we're actually going to do, if that evolves into a process improvement. But at least that has me targeted on what would make me happy. Just in retrospective.
I guess I'll go next real quick, as I usually say. I'm actually going to go 9 for my ability to contribute to the team. Not only do I know I left stuff off of what I actually got done last week, because it seemed like every day this week, other than today, I actually was somewhat WikiSpeed oriented. But yeah, and I really actually think what got me back up to that 9 is I use Scrum principles to follow a set of ideas, but basically to get me out of not being, not being able to get a task done. So I really think that using Scrum actually got me back to feeling like I could contribute to the team, because I focused on the absolutely most valuable efforts that I could get done this week, and that actually showed results. And to me, that's actually the most important part. And a 10 for the team. And I actually wrote this down, so I want to maybe I should read it word for word. It does have some not safe for work words in it, but I just want to say, for fuck's sake, you guys are awesome, and you all make the world a better place just in everything you do, and that must be why you're a part of Team WikiSpeed, because I think that every effort you make is making the world a better place, and somehow WikiSpeed gets to benefit off of that. My suggestion for a process improvement, I do not know the how or the who or the logistics of this, but it seems like the WikiSpeed, I will say forum, but just the participation, the directions of projects, everything that's going on, the progress has been picking up recently. And so I would just say weekly digest. I don't know how this would work. I don't know how it would be automated. I don't know who would be in charge of it, who would be involved in it. But it would be really cool to see just some kind of maybe blog or news feed or something that just hits the cream of the crop of the most important stuff every week. Because there's so much stuff going on. So I like, again, I have no idea how or that would work, or who would do it or what, but I think it would definitely be something that would be beneficial, and that would be it for me.
Okay. My contribution for the last week, I don't really believe in negative numbers, so I'll go with 1. And for the team, I'm going to go with 9 because things are happening. Um, it's encouraging to see more mail every day. For the process improvement, maybe I'll build a little bit on Chris's idea. The digest would have to be a little bit briefer, and I don't know what day it would go out, but I think it should also include. I'm sorry, I don't know the name of the process that plants the plants and makes the walking path and stuff around the WikiSpeed shop. But I haven't seen a progress report from that side for quite some time. And I know there's stuff happening on the micro house, and again, I haven't heard anything about it for quite some time. I haven't seen anything about it for quite some time, so it would be cool to hear about all the stuff that's happening. And whether that's a digest or a new seed or whatever it is, I think that would be great. And that's about it for me.
Okay, it's Lauren, and I'll give myself a 1 in light of Michael's too, because I showed up and I looked at one thing, and the team, yeah, it seems really impressive. I've been enjoying reading about the races, the innovation race. So, that's it for me. And as far as the one thing, yeah, the digest sounds good.
Is there anyone with a retrospective that has not yet given it? Okay, then it sounds like the candidates for process improvement of what would make all of us happier and or faster in the next sprint would be if we were able to make visible the breadth of what happens in a week. And a proposed method is a digest. I'm a big fan. I have an open question for anybody here to help brainstorm a solution, which would be if we created some type of summary of all the awesome that happened in a given week, how would we want to make that visible? Through a text email, through a YouTube video clip, through a text email including a YouTube video clip, through a Facebook page update, through a page update on our website, through a homepage update. How would we want people to see it? And then that maybe we can back into how we would accomplish it. Any ideas, folks? How would you want to show your coworkers, your friends, your loved ones, your family what happened last week in this project you're a part of?
My I won't say recommendation because it's not that at all, but maybe my idea on this is that using the blog feature of the web page might be a good way to do this, or because it allows sharing out to all other types of social media. So at some point in the past on our blog pages, and actually on any page, I created some links that allow you to share this to Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. It's not all social media, but the major ones. It also provides a link that just says email, and that's a short link you can share on any type of social media that you choose to. So maybe as a way to distribute it to everywhere, that would be the best place to start, just because it kind of gives an avenue to distribute it out to these other locations. Again, I'm not saying that's the best one. That's just my quick idea on what might satisfy the criteria.
I'd vote for that one. Anything that does not require editing on YouTube is something that I would go for right now. I kind of got myself bogged down, and I'm going to avoid that for a while.
In terms of avenue, if I'm talking to someone on a plane is often where I'd be talking to somebody because of my crazy work schedule. I'd say, oh, why don't you check out our blog? They could see the newest blog post. Or if I say, check out our YouTube channel, they could see the latest YouTube. Or if I say, check out our Facebook, they'd see whatever's top of mind on Facebook, so whatever's happening now. Those would all work for that purpose. If I'm talking to my family, I guess all three of those would also work. If I was talking to someone who's interested in setting up a shop or supporting WikiSpeed financially through PayPal, I guess all those would also work. And if it's a blog on our site, it's then portable to many other formats. My worry is it might overpower the it might make it hard to find the text blogs that are already not super easy to find, like how to set up your own WikiSpeed shop, which is a text blog now, that some people have found and said was useful. Well, I guess the blogs can be tagged with.
Well, can I throw in real quick that categories are available for blogs in WordPress? So maybe right now the blog that's shown on the website is what they call the blog roll. So that's every blog ever written. But we could also tag. You would tag everything as not this digest. Basically, we would create a separate tag that everything's tagged as, and then tag the digest as the other thing. So we could make it available on either a separate site or a separate avenue that doesn't bog down the information that is already in the blog. Possibly, but there are categories, so there is a way to separate that.
I dig it. Okay, well, if no one's opposed, it sounds like a worthy experiment. So if that's a place we would maybe wish we could point people, the next step is, how would we get something in our WordPress blog that does a useful job of conveying the breadth of what's happened in a week? Now, Google Groups that we currently use as our communication structure has an automated digest function, but all it does is aggregate the subject lines and the first sentence of the email. And I don't know if that would tell the story well. What it does allow you to do is click on any of those to go deeper. So that works. And it's automated. No one would have to do anything manually. So we could just turn that on as an experiment to a placeholder account, and then somehow pipe that placeholder email account into a WordPress blog or somewhere somehow. How valuable that is, I don't know. Because we all know in email threads, sometimes the conversation moves on from what the subject line says, and the first sentence of the email is not enough to know what's going on. And we don't email about everything we do. Like Chris Wallace was pointing out, I forgot all about the meeting with SKB Architects in the Micro House, and I don't think I'd emailed the team about it. And David Mullen, who leads the permaculture food forest around the WikiSpeed up here in Linwood, Washington, he doesn't use our email list, but he does publish YouTube demos to his own YouTube channel, which I then like periodically and embed into demo lists on the WikiSpeed YouTube channel. But I mean, yeah, they're not in our email either. It sounds like it would actually be someone's job to aggregate that input and attempt to push it out. Well, I've got an idea about that. I don't know if this is the best idea, but it's an idea. I have an intern, an unpaid intern from Edmonds Community College. Thank you so much, Patrick, who, his name's Patrick, who said he's intending to start tomorrow. I just need to remember to email him tonight when to meet him. He kept saying he's had experience with setting internships, and his particular, was setting up newsletters. And his particular internship is to be an excellent, highly trained administrative assistant. He's been in sales for years and years and years, decades, and he's what he actually wants to do. So he's assistant, high-level executive admin assistant experience. So the internship, or composing it on behalf of whoever he's executive assisting. Well, this isn't quite the same as a newsletter, but aggregating that input and then posting it on the blog section of our site might actually fit, and that's new capacity. Now, what happens when his internship's up? I don't know. We can start up this in the meantime and see if it's something that we like. So I'll propose. I asked Patrick, starting as soon as he starts, maybe it is tomorrow, to take on writing brief summaries, and I'd point him to all the different aspects of WikiSpeed that I'm aware of, which isn't all of them, prized by someone who I thought wasn't part of the team and saying, oh yeah, here's my demo the last year and every now and again. But I could point them to as much as the breadth of WikiSpeed as I'm aware, try to make blog entry. Does anyone have any proposals to that idea?
I think that is an awesome idea. I would like to maybe add to it that, again, and you pointed out, what happens when this person leaves? Like creating a person to be in charge of this. I don't know the best word to use for this, but maybe a flaw, or maybe poor planning. So maybe you said, I think Patrick could help coordinate everyone creating a environment or a utility or a interface that allows what I think maybe the best solution is, if you want your contribution to be in the weekly digest, you put your contribution in the weekly digest. Because no other person is going to be able to have time or the wherewithal or even sometimes to know what to weed through and say what's most important. So just an easy way, once you, wherever you put your contribution or whatever you want to say about it, just say, yes, throw this in the digest. I think this is important enough to go into everyone reading it that's not part of the internal development team. I want this customer facing. I want this out there. So
Chris, that's genius. If I set up Patrick to have an email exchange, or better yet, a Google Hangout with you, maybe even tomorrow, would you be comfortable saying, here's the vision that you've had, Chris Wallace has had, Patrick, can you attempt to make as much of it as you can come true?
yes, absolutely. I'll probably have to, in the AM tomorrow, rewatch this video to see what my vision was. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But then, right, yes, absolutely. I won't say it will be tomorrow, but I will absolutely be willing to meet with him and try to, like I said, put him in charge of coordinating all the people that may have interest in this and telling them what my idea about it is.
Okay, that's a brilliant enhancement. Does anybody have additional enhancements or counter proposals?
I don't think it's an enhancement. I think it might be an implementation method. The way that we have WikiSpeed at the beginning of all our subject for distributing email. I think adding another flag like newsletter or weekly update or whatever short form you want to put would be the easiest way to mark something as, yeah, put it in the digest. But I don't know what the short form should be, and I don't know how to cover the stuff that doesn't go via email. So we're gonna have to come up with other flags, obviously. But I think that's a start anyway.
And this is Lauren. I agree with Chris that looking past the intern setting things up, part of his task could be to make it such that people could contribute easily. I think, like in terms of a wiki, or it functioning a little bit like a wiki. But anyway, something that's maybe it's got some sections, so you're used to the it gets kicked off by one person organizing it, but for the sustainability after that person's gone, that people are familiar with the format and there's an easy way to jump in and add an item.
I like that as a goal. How to implement it, I don't know. But I do like that as a goal very, very much. Other enhancements, or are there any counter proposals? Okay, then ship it. It sounds like we're, of those attending, in agreement that what we'd like to do is make more visible the breadth of what happens in a given week across this group in a summary format, somewhere that, and we wish that that were shareable through other media, social media channels, if folks want to. The best thought we've had so far, the initial implementation we've thought of, is posting it as a blog entry and flagging it something. Weekly summary. Really, it's a company-wide demo, so it could be the WikiSpeed-wide demo, whatever it is, on our website. And then who to do it? We thought initially we'd ask a new intern that I believe is starting tomorrow, Patrick, and have him suck Chris Wallace's brain dry, because Chris seemed to have, I thought, a clear driving vision that's just been enhanced by all of our proposals. And have Patrick, if he's willing, attempt to set up an interface where people can put in what they would like to be shared. The one, folks, last chance to change our mind. Done. Then I will commit to speaking to Patrick about this and attempting to connect him and Chris Wallace for more information and putting it in his backlog, at the top of his backlog of internship wishes, which I think aligns to what he likes to do anyway, because he mentioned newsletter several times, and this is similar-ish. Okay, ceremonies, what we need to do to run this business for another week, and takes us to open conversation. Several topics were tipped for open conversation. The first one that I recall, Chris Wallace had said he had something for open conversation.
Yes.
I think he was the first one to say it. Chris, would you mind saying what it is?
Okay, real quick, something I wrote down early on was that I love that you ran across, probably from somewhere else, the weather pack connector idea, or whatever, path, I would say, because that was the most common response I got to my accelerator extension, was you just need to be using weather packs. So that was a great learning opportunity. You mentioned earlier about soldering the connectors. So, and I think Michael Lolchek will agree, because we've discussed this before, not with stranded wire. Do not solder stranded wire into the connector, because you're actually making a more brittle connection that does not hold up to vibration. A solid wire solders better. A stranded wire, you need a good crimp. You need a very good crimp, and that's all you need. Other than that, you're actually reducing the ability of the connection, because just normal road vibration can actually, what happens is the individual strands get hardened when you solder them like that, so it'll break just from normal road vibration. So just because I know that was a path that you were going to be going down, I wanted to mention that was some knowledge I picked up in my path of going through that. So. And I think that covers what I had for open discussion. So, okay.
Thank you so much. You have my gratitude. Michael Wolchek, I believe you had an item for open conversation as well. Would you like to go next?
I could go next if I, in fact, remembered what it was that I was going to talk about. I had enough equipment problems getting connected that I'm not sitting in the place where I normally am, and I didn't write anything down. Hopefully someone else will talk about something that will twig my memory.
Okay. Well, I do have go ahead, Lauren. Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, just a quick thing that it appears that some parts of maybe 2011 or 2012, that some months are not there. Now that may be because nothing happened. But anyway, my proposal for handling that could be just to put a note on. You know, these are nonprofit associations that are applying for this. So one approach would just be to put a notation on it that complete data is available for these months. and you know, have some kind of a notation. And we'll sort that out when I'll submit you the whole thing, and I'll put that as a suggestion. That's all.
Lauren, to that point, I do believe those are all the financial records we have. That means those months, likely there was no activity.
Okay.
Now, I don't know anything to the contrary. I could have lost some receipts. That's totally possible. But seeing as that is our very most complete data set,
yeah, due diligence.
We've looked into. I've had 3 interns look into it, and 2 accountants,
Okay.
1 volunteer and 1 paid, and it's the best we've got. So I would say we can flag those data we have. We believe there was no financial activity these months. That's completely honest. To your point.
Cool. Okay.
But savvy, it just heads off the question of, well, what did happen those months? This is complete, and we believe there was no activity. That's quite smart, Lauren. I didn't think of that at all. Thank you. Would you be comfortable adding that notation when it comes time to submit the data for the federal non-for-profit filing?
Yeah, I'll keep that in mind.
Oh, thank you, if you recall. And again, I know. Yes, please go ahead, Dr. Lolchek.
With the DC controller, if you were interested in purchasing a fairly massive controller, it would save a little bit of money on building the boards. So probably going to pull the trigger by next week. So if you want to think about it, let me know.
Right. So does that mean I should let you know by Monday, or even sooner, or when?
How about for next Thursday stand-up? Are you going to be around?
No, but I will commit to letting you know before then. And if somehow I go dark, it's because I'm assassinated and I'm inside a concrete wall somewhere, and I wouldn't be able to purchase the controller.
Okay.
That said, I'd like to be very clear. I'm very interested in the controller. I believe electric is exactly where all this needs to go. That controller has the correct price to performance ratio. That is to say, better than what's available most of the time. I will think it through. I'll do a little more due diligence on my part, but I'd like to say yes, I'm interested, and I'll either commit or not by prior to next Thursday. I'll email it to you.
Okay. So did you ever find out what the bend of the controller was on that car in the shop? You were going to look.
Yeah, it's a Curtis.
Okay. So it's probably a Curtis 12.
Curtis. Yeah, it's super teeny tiny, and there are, gosh, I took pictures of it, but they're further back in the history of my phone nowadays. I took those before Christmas. Of the part number of the controller and of the battery setup, but it's not super powerful. But it's enough to have a lot of fun because the car's so cool.
Yes.
If we just were gifted an EV, which I wasn't quite gifted, the EV part still claimed to be owned by our partner, Momentum Power. But the car, the WikiSpeed chassis, steering, suspension, seats, all that, those are ours, right? So if you have a car in front of you and the person who hands it to you says, doesn't seem to be working, and then they leave. I figured step 1 is charge the batteries and see what happens, right? The problem is I don't have a charger that can charge all the batteries at once, so I'm very slowly charging them one at a time. And there are, I think, 16, something like that. There's a lot. So it's taken some time, and each one takes an overnight charge with the charger I have. Once that happens, once that's done, I'll see what happens. After that, Dr. Lolchek, what would you recommend I try?
Well, you check whether the voltage is getting to the controller. So there is probably a contactor, a large relay in there somewhere. And it normally needs either 12 or 24 volts in order to in order to energize. So at that point, you're looking at emergency brake switch, ignition switch, that kind of stuff, making sure that the 12 volts goes through and it's turning the contactor on. At that point, you should have, it sounds like 48 to 56 volts on the terminals of your Curtis controller. If you have the voltage on the controller, the next thing you check is the throttle. Whether the throttle is a resistance type or a Hall effect type. The resistance type is a 5K potentiometer, which is connected to 3 terminals on the controller, and basically you got the wiper, plus and minus. If it's a Hall effect sensor, there's an additional power signal going to it, and the signal goes from about half a volt to about 4.5 volts. For the potentiometer, it depends on the age of the Curtis. It could just be measuring the resistance, or it could be actually looking for a signal going through to ground. So you may have to ground the bottom pin to the battery pack. Again, that kind of depends on the model of the Curtis, and that's something that's not in the Curtis manual, interestingly enough. If the throttle is okay and the battery pack is connected, you got signal, you got power to the controller. The motor leads are the only thing that's left, and they're usually pretty easy to see if there's something wrong. Little things like corrosion and stuff don't normally come into effect. They'll heat up the connection if they're not clean and tight. But usually something happens. You would just lift up the back wheels and hit the accelerator, see if she spins. Is there a clutch? Is there a gearbox in here?
There is, yeah. It's a Honda 5-speed.
Okay, so you can spin it without having it in gear. And if it does not go at that point, there are blink codes on some of the Curtises. So there's a little LED that's green if everything's good, and it blinks either orange or red in kind of like a Morse code. It gives you, and if you have the manual, you go through and it'll point you a little bit closer to something specific that may not be right. There are a bunch more things that can go wrong, but those would be the main ones I'd shoot for to begin with.
I will reference this YouTube video as I walk through. That was fantastic, Michael, right off the top of your head. Of course, I'm impressed, but it shows the expertise you've earned for yourself working on these types of systems. Thank you very much for sharing some of it right now.
Yeah, it's not like I haven't done it a couple of times.
I just want to add, and this isn't really to expand on what Michael was saying, because he knows a million times more about this than I do. But you were saying one of your troubleshooting steps was to individually charge each battery. One of my kind of naive thoughts was, is there actually a way that any one of those batteries or cells could affect it all from providing power? I imagine it's not wired that way.
They're normally all wired in series, and if you have a dead cell, yes, that can actually happen where it doesn't actually do anything because it won't let any power or won't let any current through that battery. Hopefully that's not the case. But if you check the terminal voltage of
each battery
batteries when you're done. The other thing that I will do a little bit of a caution, because we're not sure what the condition of the batteries is you can actually have these things heat up and cause a fire if the battery charger isn't all that smart and if the cells are damaged. So I wouldn't do the charging overnight. I think I might just plug it in while I'm in the shop so that I can hear a crackle or smell a bad smell or whatever you want to describe. Some indication that the batteries aren't in good shape.
Dr. Wilczek, does it make sense to known good batteries for 24 volts and attempt to connect them bypassing the existing battery pack? Is that difference in voltage going to allow me to troubleshoot, or it'll stop the party?
If you disconnect the existing batteries and connect, I don't know if 2 is going to be enough. It kind of depends on the model of the controller and what voltage it's expecting.
Right. Okay. What I will attempt to do is take a new picture, if I can, with good enough light showing the model number of the controller and email it to the team list. So that you and anyone who might want to can add comments at their leisure. So I will attempt to do that and publish it to the team email list tonight.
Okay.
Awesome. I want to throw one more thing. I know we're right down to the tail end of our time block. So I think Michael may have maybe verified my suspicion about an individual cell or battery could cause a problem. But I only wanted to point out, Joe, that you said you were charging individual batteries. So if what you were doing does in fact fix the problem, that battery pack is going to need to be battery balanced again. Because if you're charging each individual battery, I think that throws off the battery balance, where each cell is either bottom balanced or top balanced at a specific voltage. So just if it does fix it, then in fact that may need to be balanced again. And again, Michael can probably verify or correct me on that.
Yep, you're right. If they're bottom balanced, then charging each one separately is going to mess it up. But if you're just charging it up so that you can do some testing, that won't. The bottom balancing is just kind of trying to protect your batteries. If you run them right down to nothing, it doesn't allow one of them to get reverse voltage and get severely damaged.
So worth doing, but for testing, I don't have to worry about it yet because I'm not planning on testing running the voltage all the way down in the pack. Am I close?
Yep.
Heck yes. Okay. I just learned a whole lot more yet again. Gosh, it's fun to work with a group because on your own, you just get stuck. Okay, folks, it's 6:58. I'm going to get to the shop and try to make some dust and smoke, as Rob Beresford was famous for saying. Thank you, folks. It's my honor and privilege to have rocked with you folks for another week. And I look forward to emails in between. And I won't be on next Thursday. I'm actually working at the time of the stand-up. But I'll see you all the following Thursday, I sure hope. Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
Y'all kids are awesome.
Go on, machine.